The Carcano Rifle. Back in Battlefield 1, everyone was requesting DICE to bring it to the game as it was such an iconic weapon of not only the First World War, but also of World War II. DICE would eventually add this rifle into the game with the Turning Tides DLC and add in some very beautiful skins for it as well, such as the legendary Alessandria skin and the distinguished Charge of Stupizza skin. With Battlefield 5, many were disappointed initially that their Carcano rifle didn't make it into the game at launch, but little did we know that DICE would be adding it later for the Trial by Fire Tides of War with the M28 Tromboncino rifle. Hey everyone, what's going on? Christopher the video game historian here with another video on the history behind the weapons of Battlefield. This week's video is centered all around the Carcano rifle and the experimental M28 grenade launcher designed for it. This is the real history of the M28 Tromboncino. Now before I get into what the Tromboncino is and how it came about, let's take a step back a little further with the Carcano Rifle. This rifle was developed by Salvatore Carcano at Terni Arsenal, whose team was commissioned by the Italian government to produce a rifle that would replace the military's current Viterli firearms. The rifle that came about would be the Carcano M91, which utilized Salvatore's own bolt design and a modified Mannlicher style charger clip. Impressed with the rifles, the military would adopt them as their new service rifle in 1892, which were then used up until 1938. These rifles were chambered for the new rimless 6.5 by 52mm cartridge and could hold 6 rounds via a charger clip that was locked inside the magazine. When the last round was stripped out, the clip would then fall through a hole in the bottom of the magazine well. They weighed roughly 8.7 pounds when unloaded and were roughly 50.5 inches long, although cavalry and carbine variants tended to be shorter than the standard infantry rifle. When these rifles were replaced in 1938, they were replaced with a new pattern of Carcano rifles called the M38s. Now while the bolt and everything about the rifle was more or less similar, the biggest difference was that the new M38s were chambered for a 7.3 by 52mm cartridge. However, due to many logistical issues and the round not being readily available, these guns were rechambered to accept the old standard 6.5mm rounds. After the war, the Italian military would replace these rifles once again, this time with the M1 Garands supplied to them by the Americans, which then led to the Italians to manufacture them under their own license. Now as for the Tromboncino, the main portion of this video, this was the actual grenade launcher designed for the Carcano, specifically for the M91 TS, or the Machetto per Truppe Speciali, a carbine length variant. This was developed sometime between 1927 and 28 as Italy's attempt to develop a grenade launcher for use within their military. While the weight and length of the Tromboncino are currently unknown, what we do know is that it was chambered for a 38.5mm 160-gram fin stabilized grenade. It was a single shot launcher that used the same bolt and 6.5mm Carcano round that the rifle used to propel and to launch the grenade, which had an effective range of roughly 200 meters. When the Tromboncino was connected to the rifle, it would become linked with the Carcano's trigger group, and as such, each pull of the rifle's trigger meant that you were activating both the sear of the rifle and the sear of the grenade launcher at the same time. In order to use the Tromboncino, you will have had to taken the bolt out of the rifle and placed it into the receiver of the grenade launcher. From there, you would place a presumably blank or squibbed 6.5mm round into the launcher and close the bolt. Once you load in the grenade, you are ready to fire with a squeeze of the trigger. To use the rifle, just take the bolt back out and place it into the receiver and chamber the next round. This operation made it impossible to use both the launcher and the rifle at the same time. Unfortunately, due to the weight, the inability to use both the rifle and the grenade launcher at the same time, and due to how expensive it was to manufacture, the Tromboncinos were quickly replaced in 1934 with the 45mm Braxia assault mortar, which proved to be less bulky and more versatile to move around and to use. It is also unknown as to how many of these grenade launchers were produced within the 6 years they were being manufactured, as many of the records were either lost or potentially destroyed. Now, while today many militaries around the world have proprietary grenade launchers for their respective platforms, such as the M203 for the AR style platform here in the US and the GP30 for the AK style platform over in Russia, the Tromboncino was conceptually ahead of its time, for many militaries were simply using rifle-mounted grenade launchers. These launchers simply attached onto the end of the rifle's barrel with a squib or blank round inserted into the chamber to propel the grenade forward. At the time, this would have been a very revolutionary idea that unfortunately just didn't play out as the designers probably had hoped for. Anyway, that's all I've got on the Carcano and the M28 Cappuccino, and while I'm not too big of a fan of this rifle, what are your thoughts on it? Is it useful for the medic class, or are the SMGs just better overall? Let me know in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. Also, don't forget to follow me on social media with Twitter and Facebook, and until next time, I'll see you all on the battlefield.